Hello everyone, hope you guys are safe and healthy. Today we are going to have a very interactive session on the topic RERA, that is the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, which has become one of the most important aspects of the real estate sector in the recent time. So let's quickly see the topics to be covered in this session and then we move forward. First, we'll start with the brief introduction to the RERA Act, then we'll move on to the rationale of the legislatures for passing the RERA Act. Then we'll go to the relief brought by RERA. Then we have home buyers as financial creditors, difference between secured financial creditors and unsecured financial creditors. Then we'll deal with different approaches an aggrieved home buyer can resort to. Then we'll talk about its advantages. Then we'll talk about its drawback. Then we'll talk about why smaller projects were left out of RERA, and at the end we'll have a brief recap of all the topics covered. So let's start. The bill came into force on 1st May 2016. To come under the purview of RERA, the area that should be developed should not be less than 500 square meter or total flats should not be less than 8. Each state has its own real estate regulatory authority established by the Act in order to regulate the real estate sector. Only Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Sikkim, Jammu Kashmir and West Bengal does not have RERA. However, one cannot say that West Bengal is an exception, as it has its own authority known as HIRA, that is Housing Industry Regulatory Authority. Basically, the main focus of the bill is regulation of the contract and transfer of property, both of which come under the concurrent list. We know that the 7th schedule of Constitution specifies specific allocation of powers and functions between Union and states. It has 3 lists, namely the Union list, where the Union government or Parliament has exclusive powers to legislate on those matters. Second, we have the state list, where the state legislatures have exclusive powers to legislate on those matters. And the third is concurrent lists, which are under the joint domain of the Parliament as well as the state legislatures. So, the state laws have also been enacted in order to regulate the real estate projects. But it should be noted that if the State Act and RERA Act have inconsistencies, then the RERA Act will override the provisions of the State Act. So, what was the legislators' rationale behind passing this law? To bring accountability and transparency. Accountability includes timely completion and delivery of possession of the project. Transparency includes the definition of carpet area, which all the builders have to follow. Carpet area is defined as the net usable area of an apartment, excluding balcony or veranda area and exclusive open terrace area, but includes the area covered by the internal partition of walls of the apartment. In layman's perspective, it is the net usable area in which one can spread a carpet. Next, let's move on to the relief brought by RERA. First, high lucidity. Lucidity means clarity. This act has brought more clarity to the home buyers, like they get to know the exact date of their possession. Earlier, home buyers were very much in the grey area in this matter. The carpet area is defined, a dedicated establishment for addressing the grievance of home buyers has been established. Second, the market has expanded, mostly because of the increased investor confidence in housing projects. Third, only RERA authority after careful examination can grant extension in possession date, which is only given if there is a genuine problem like the one we are seeing in this coronavirus pandemic. Fourth, if there is a delay in possession by the builder will pay same interest rate as the home buyer would have paid if there was delay in payment of installation. So, the builders now no longer have an unfair advantage over the home buyers. The Act has empowered home buyers with better negotiating power. Okay, let's understand how home buyers are now financial creditors. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 was amended in 2018. Following the amendment, the home buyers and allottees under RERA got the status of financial creditors. Note that home buyers and allottees are not same. Home buyers have an sales agreement and the allottees have an agreement of allotment. For your information, sales agreement is transfer of title or ownership from the vendor to the purchaser, while agreement of allotment is a transfer of possession or right to occupy from the allotted to the allottee. The amendments made by ordinance brings IBC in closer sync with Section 18 of RERA Act, which gives the allottees the right to demand refund of the entire amount paid by the allottees and interest to be claimed for any delayed possession. Next, let's move on to understand the differences between secured financial creditors and unsecured financial creditors. Suppliers, customers, contractors, etc. are generally operational creditors and mostly operational creditors are unsecured, while banks and lenders are generally financial creditors and can be either secured financial creditors or unsecured financial creditors. Under IBC, the difference between secured and unsecured financial creditors mostly have an implication on the priority of payments upon liquidation. In a normal transaction, this does not have much of a difference, but if a company becomes insolvent, then its assets are liquidated. In this case, the secured financial creditors get back their money first. The difference between being insolvent or being bankrupt is that insolvent is a state when a company's liability exceeds its assets and is unable to pay its creditor. But bankruptcy is a court order that decides how an insolvent debtor will deal with unpaid obligations. One can be insolvent without being bankrupt, but its vice versa is not true. One cannot be bankrupt without being insolvent. Allottees are also secured financial creditors. Home buyers have different approaches to file their grievances. They can approach Consumer Court, NCLT, or RERA as per their case requirement. Each approach has its own repercussions. Now, let's have a look at the key differences between the RERA Act and the Consumer Protection Act. First, on the basis of filing a case, only a registered purchaser or a registered association of purchaser can file a case in Consumer Court. However, filing of a plaint to RERA authority is not only limited to registered purchaser. Allottees or unregistered purchasers can also file. Second is on the basis of jurisdiction. A consumer court tries all disputes related to consumer interest. However, RERA courts are dedicated courts, so home buyers can settle their disputes in less time compared to consumer courts. Third is RERA Act can take suo motu cognizance as well as when there is a complaint, but consumer courts cannot take suo motu cognizance. Next is RERA courts have the power to imprison a person, that is up to 3 years, but consumer courts do not enjoy the same power. And at the last point is since consumer courts have been working for a long time now, it has a good precedence of solving disputes, but RERA courts cannot claim the same as they are new. But it is very early to judge the RERA courts. Let's just wait for some time and see how they stand. Let's see some advantages of RERA. First, we have a proper definition of carpet area which all the builders should follow and can no more mislead home buyers by confusing terms like super built-up area, built-up area, or any other term which has no formal definition in the eyes of law. Secondly, earlier what used to happen was that the builders were having an unfair advantage over home buyers. If there was a payment default on part of the buyer, they used to pay at the rate of 15 to 20% interest. But if the builder delayed in giving possession, they used to pay a meager 2 to 3% to the buyers. Third, it reduces the risk of builder insolvency or bankruptcy due to the 70% escrow mechanism. 70% escrow mechanism means 70% of the amount received from the project should be deposited in a separate bank account. Earlier, what many builders used to do was they start the work, receive money from the buyers, and after majority of the flats have been booked for sale, they used to divert the money back to the other projects. Fourth, the buyer can at any time withdraw from the project if he finds out that he had been misled or false information had been given to him. In this case, the buyer has the right to full refund plus applicable interest. Applicable interest is determined by the interest rate that had been determined while entering into sale purchase agreement. Fifth, the builder cannot take more than 10% of the total amount of the plot to be sold as an advance. No terms and conditions apply. Sixth, if the buyer finds any defect or quality related issue in the house within 5 years of delivery, he is entitled to be taken care of by the developer with no additional cost. 7. A buyer is entitled to receive all information with respect to the project. And lastly, if there is any grievance, a buyer can approach to RERA authority, which operates as a dedicated court for real estate related issues. all that glitters is not gold. There are certain drawbacks too. Let's discuss them one by one. First, the 70% escrow mechanism has made it tough for developers to raise funds. Second, the capital efficiency has reduced and the developer or promoter has to depend more on institutional capital like bank finance or private equity, for example. This leads to rise in project costs, and ultimately the buyers are the losers as they have to pay higher amounts for the same plot. Third, the Act does not address the problem of availability of housing stock for all income levels. There was a need to create a mechanism where people from all income levels could have their own home, which a common man was expecting at least. Fourth, many were expecting that the new law would curb black money transaction in real estate projects, but that didn't happen. So black money holders still have their safe haven in real estate sector. Fifth, most of the processes that we have discussed, like filing a complaint or getting any data about our project, everything will be done in the internet. But we all know the sad reality of government websites. Till we see something good in this aspect, we'll consider this as a drawback and not an advantage. So let's understand why were smaller projects left out of RERA. Yes, the Act has constructed an entry-level barrier by defining the minimum size of the project, which means smaller projects will be outside the purview of RERA. But what I personally believe is that the primary aim of RERA was to bring group housing projects under its ambit, as it was difficult for individuals to fight legal battles against them. It is estimated that about 80% of the real estate transaction takes place in the 7 metros where most of the large size projects are constructed. So it's fair enough to say that the Act covers majority of the cases, and smaller projects can be resolved in civil courts. But it should be noted that the Act does not restrict the state RERA acts to reduce the threshold like we have in the case of Maharashtra. Maharashtra RERA Act covers all projects above 250 square meter or 5 apartments, contrary to the main Act of 500 square meter or 8. So, what did we learn? RERA covers all real estate projects with a minimum of 500 square meter area or 8 apartments, but the threshold can be brought down by states. Second, it has brought more accountability and transparency, which has increased the protection of home buyers' interests and removed the unfair advantages enjoyed by builders. For example, same interest rate for both builders and home buyers if there is a delay in payment of installation or possession of property, and it has brought a standardized definition of carpet area. Third, it has brought more clarity on date of possession and other related information. Fourth, home buyers have now become secure financial creditors, which is the best thing to happen in this act. I would recommend to check out the Amravali case for an in-depth knowledge about this. Fifth, we learned about the different approaches an aggrieved home buyer can resort to. They can approach NCLT to initiate a corporate insolvency proceeding, or they can approach a consumer court to file a complaint to protect their consumer interests, or they can approach a RERA court, which is a dedicated court for real estate matters. On a case-to-case basis, one should approach a particular court as per their needs. And lastly, why were smaller projects left out of RERA? It was my personal opinion that the intention of the legislators for passing this law was that individual buyers were not able to fight legal battles against big companies in the event of a default or if there was any grievance. Since 80% of real estate transactions happen in the metros, which are big projects, it's fair enough to say that the Act covers majority of the. This brings us to the end of the sessions. Hope you guys were able to get a basic knowledge of RERA. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe to my channel Legal Curiosity. This would encourage me to make more such videos. I want to create legal literacy for the non-legal fraternity. My next videos will be on more common issues that common people face in their day-to-day life. So stay connected. Bye guys. Stay safe.